A serial killer is defined as a person who murders 3 or more people in at least 3 separate events with a cooling period between hits. They generally kill during a cycle when they're feeling stressed and feel temporarily relieved after they commit the homicide. The motivations of the serial killers vary, but they often fall into these 4 categories: obtaining money, experiencing thrill, a sense of power, and a desire to rid the world of evildoers. A serial killer can be both male or female, but their profiles have major differences. Criminologist Eric Hickey, the author of Serial Killers and Their Victims, interviewed 64 female serial killers and discovered that most were white and typically killed between 7 and 10 victims. They are more likely to kill family members than strangers, and most of the victims were in the upper middle class. They also tend to operate longer than males. Most had at least a high school or college education. 40% are nurses and 22% are some sort of caregiver. They also use quieter methods of killing, such as poison, drugs, and smothering.
The profile of a female serial killer usually consists of a woman who is average or above average in attractiveness, around 32 years old at the time of their first murder, and hold a caregiving position such as a nurse, babysitter, or teacher as a profession. Female serial killers typically kill family or friends in a setting they are familiar with, like a home or a healthcare facility. They use their attractive looks and nurturing or sexual behavior to trick their victims. There is no pattern in the gender or age of a female serial killer's victims, but instead is based on their motive. Women are easily overlooked as serial killers. They hide as mothers, wives, or grandmothers. Even after they have been reprimanded, it is easier for them to slip back into the crime.
The profile of a male serial killer differs from that of a female. Males typically kill strangers, usually women, using more violent means. They are known to torture, rape, dismember, and brutally kill their victims. While women kill for money or power, men kill for lust. They are characterized by a desire for domination, control, and sexual violence. While there are many differences in the profiles of male and female serial killers, they also have some similarities. Both males and females that turn out to be serial killers usually have a rough childhood. Because of this, many are antisocial and usually act alone in their crimes. However, when speaking to their victims, killers are described as charismatic and articulate. Names such as Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, and John Wayne Gacy are recognized by almost everyone. These people are notorious serial killers with a long list of heinous crimes. Ted Bundy.
Sure, I get angry. I get very, very angry and indignant. I don't like being locked up for something I didn't do, and I don't like my liberty taken away, and I don't like being treated like an animal, and I don't like people walking around and ogling me like I'm some sort of weirdo, because I'm not.
Tell me how you encountered Ted Bundy.
This tan Volkswagen drove by very slowly. The driver kind of looked at me as he went past, and then he stopped and backed up and leaned over and rolled down the passenger window and asked me where I was going. And then he turned in the car seat, so he's kind of facing me, and he leaned in really close. I thought he was going to kiss me. Instead, he said very quietly, "Do you know what? I'm going to kill you."
Ted Bundy kidnapped, raped, assaulted, and murdered around 30 women during the 1970s. He is well known for his use of charming his victims to go on dates with him. Jeffrey Dahmer.
It made me feel like they were a permanent part of me. Besides the just mere curiosity of what it would be like, it made them feel that they were a part of me, and it gave me a sexual satisfaction to do that.
I don't know how to put it. Possess them permanently.
And that's why you killed them?
Right. Not because I was angry with them, not because I hated them, but because I wanted to keep them with me. And as my obsession grew, I was saving body parts such as skulls and skeletons.
Jeffrey Dahmer was a serial killer who raped, dismembered, and murdered 17 men from 1978 to 1991. He was also a cannibal. John Wayne Gacy.
I strolled down the streets and stalked young boys and slaughtered them.
That one mother that gets on television all the time who thinks I should be given 33 injections, I think she ought to take 33 Valiums and go lay down. She goes on Geraldo show and all these other shows talking about, I think it's Maori, I think is the name, her Marine son. Her Marine son, if her Marine son was so great, what the hell did he run away from home 12 times?
John Wayne Gacy assaulted and murdered at least 33 young men inside his ranch house between 1972 and 1978. All of these men are very well known, and you probably recognize the names. However, rarely does anyone recognize the names of any female serial killers. They often commit just as many murders as males for even longer periods of time. They are not as well known because males overpower the female population in serial killers. Females are also stereotypically incapable of that degree of violence. Eileen Wuornos.
Okay, I cannot go in the execution chamber and die in the execution chamber as a liar. And I cannot go in the execution chamber and be executed under the devil. I have to come clean and cleanse my spirit in the name of Jesus Christ. Yeah, and I got to come clean that I killed those 7 men in first-degree murder and robbery. As they said, they had it right. Serial killer.
The most famous female serial killer, often said to be the first female serial killer, is Eileen Wuornos. She became known because she was atypical of female serial killers. Instead, she killed like a man, using almost the same methods that male serial killers use to kill their victims. She used a gun instead of poison, she killed outside and in places she was unfamiliar with, she killed strangers instead of friends or family, and killed for vengeance instead of for money and power. She was the 10th woman to be executed on death row after being charged with the first-degree murder of the 7 men that she picked up and mercilessly killed along the highway. She was a former prostitute who got sick of the way she was being treated by the men she was with.
I'm telling you, bottom of my heart, I'm telling you the truth about everything. I mean, I can't be any truthful. They got violent with me, and I decided to be done with it. I wasn't going to let them leave the here and kill me either.
Our strategy was to convince the jury that Eileen Wuornos had acted in self-defense.
Wuornos could have kept committing crimes for many more years, but her partner in crime, Tyra Moore, got caught and turned Wuornos in.
I was afraid of her after a while, that if I tried to leave, that she would, do something. The one thing I am sorry about that is I never did go to the police after the first one, because maybe the other 6 would still be alive.
While Wuornos was an atypical female serial killer, there are many other women who committed heinous crimes. Jane Topin was a nurse at Cambridge Hospital. She was very well liked at the hospital and even dubbed the nickname Jolly Jane. What no one knew, however, was that she was performing experiments with morphine and atropine on her favorite elderly patients. Through these experiments, she claimed several lives. She was eventually fired for administering opiates recklessly, so she began poisoning people outside of the hospital. After around 20 years, she was caught and charged with the murders of 31 people. She was quoted to say that her ambition was to have killed more people, helpless people, than any other man or woman who lived. Amelia Dyer was trained as a nurse but became a baby farmer. A baby farmer adopts unwanted infants in exchange for money. We know of this knowledge today as fostering children. She initially cared for the children, but a number died in her care. This led to a conviction for negligence and 6 months of hard labor. She was sent to mental hospitals multiple times and even survived a suicide attempt. After this, she would adopt children and purposely murder them. After a corpse was found and connected to Dyer, she was charged with the murder of around 400 children. It took the jury only 4.5 minutes to find Dyer guilty. Both of these women were women who held jobs characterized by caring for others. Many jobs fall under this category, such as a nurse, caregiver, teacher, babysitter, nanny, or simply being a stay-at-home mom or housewife. This is a common profession group for female serial killers because it allows for them to overpower their victims. They kill people more helpless than themselves.
There are many differences presented in female and male serial killers. Female serial killers are categorized as gatherers, whereas male serial killers are characterized as hunters of their prey. Female serial killers were studied by Marissa Harrison, a psychology professor at Penn State Harrisburg, and her team were found to have mostly poisoned, smothered, burned, choked, bludgeoned, and shot newborns, children, elderly, and ill people, as well as healthy adults, most often those who knew and likely trusted them. The stereotypes of the serial killers are known as male. A common thought was that women were physically incapable of murder, especially serial killers. Women who would kill for power and their victims were those who they knew, whereas men would kill for lust and at random.
Studies show 85% of serial killers are male and 15% are female. The most typical serial killers are white, holding 51.7% of convicted serial killers in the United States from 1900 to 2010. 39.8% are African American, 6.7% are Hispanic, 1% Native American, and 0.9% Asian. 1 in 6 serial killers are women, which is a large misconception because women tend to go longer without getting caught than men. In 2007, there are 140 known women serial killers and almost 1,000 known males. The largest difference is that 52.8% of female serial killers kill people who were related to them, whereas only 9.1% of male serial killers were related to their victims. There are more studies and statistics on male serial killers because there is a greater number of them. There are fewer female serial killers than male serial killers. This could be because it is more likely for a man to kill due to their violent nature or because females are underestimated when it comes to murder. Many think females are not capable of the violence serial killers commit. Females typically go unnoticed longer than men do, and the authorities take an extended period of time to find female serial killers compared to men. Less than 20% of serial killers are women, and they are very effective in their work because they are quieter and not as messy as males.
Female killers are often involved in theft, fraud, or embezzlement before becoming a serial killer due to their interest in material things. Although most female serial killers murder for money or other profit, some do it for the attention and sympathy they receive following the death of someone they cared for. They hide as mothers, wives, or grandmothers that no one thinks is capable to kill a loved one. Even after they have been reprimanded, it is easier for them to slip back into the crime due to the low profile they keep. Many female serial killers use their attractive looks to gain trust and personal connection to the victim before murdering them. Aileen Wuornos was an atypical female serial killer. She may be the most famous female killer, but her methods were different than most other females. Aileen Wuornos killed strangers instead of family or friends, outside instead of in a familiar place, used a gun instead of poison, and killed for revenge. Many would say that Aileen Wuornos killed more like a male than a female due to her methods of killing and the way she acted during her trial.
There is no definite cause that will make someone a serial killer, but there are some early warning signs that have been linked to people becoming killers. Most come from a rough childhood, such as experiencing sexual abuse, witnessing domestic violence, or coming from a broken home. Many are seen as being antisocial in adolescence through adulthood, and would be categorized as loners. This doesn't mean every quiet person is a serial killer, but it is a trait that has been found in most convicted killers. Many killers come from broken homes where they have been abused or neglected. Serial killers typically exhibit 3 behaviors as a child: bedwetting, arson, and cruelty towards animals. Their past abuse can cause hatred towards the world and give them a motive to kill. However, this is more common in males than females. Many serial killers had a childhood that lacked affection. Without the attention and love a child needs, they can develop a psychopathic personality by the age of 2, lacking sympathy, remorse, and affection. Most killers are separated from their peers as a child. They are typically victims of bullying from something such as a weight problem or a speech impediment. Bullying can then lead to violent or aggressive fantasies. The mothers of serial killers tend to raise men that have hatred towards females. The mothers of these male killers may be overprotective, controlling, and/or physically or emotionally abusive. Many serial killers abuse drugs or alcohol. There are some theories called biological trait theories that means there can be neurological and physical abnormalities that can begin in a prenatal stage in some humans. Many convicted serial killers were identified to have these traits. These repetitive serial killers may just be reacting to chemicals and hereditary factors in their brains rather than pure evil. According to an article published by Lemoyne College on the statistics of psychological traumas serial killers have faced, 42% of convicted serial killers suffered from physical abuse as a child. 74% suffered from psychological abuse. 29% of serial killers were found to be accident-prone children. 35% witnessed sexual abuse, and 43% were sexually abused themselves.
Stereotypically, people think serial killers have mental disorders, but in